We said one of the characteristics of the Cold War was the bipolar order. So now we are going to study each pole and their characteristics, their areas of influence too. Western Bloc. Western Europe and the American continent were under the influence of the United States. All of them had democratic systems, in America dictatorial systems, and a capitalist economic system. There was only two exceptions in Europe. One was Portugal and the other one Spain. The United States provided political, economic, and military assistance. So they carried out these policies: the Truman Doctrine, the European Recovery Program, and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Harry Truman, the President of the United States, implemented a foreign policy to stop the spread of communism. Think that Europe was completely destroyed after the Second World War, and that meant horrible living conditions for Europeans. Shortage of food and fuel, destructions of buildings and infrastructures. And probably under these circumstances, Europeans would prefer the equality promised by communism. So President Truman tried to help these countries to avoid that danger, to improve economically. But European countries need a specific help. So this help was an economic one. It was created the European Recovery Program in 1948. It was created in the United States and it was called the Marshall Plan because it was named after the United States Secretary of State George Marshall. And this plan provided $30 billion to Europe. Careful, false friend. 1 billion in English means 1,000 millions in Spanish. When we say in Spanish un billón, that means 1 million of millions. The Marshall Plan benefited 17 European countries, but not Spain, because Spain, it was not a democracy. A few years later, Franco made an agreement with the United States President, Dwight David Eisenhower. And Spain, since that moment, got help from the Marshall Plan, although it did not stop being a dictatorship. Other kind of a specific help was the military help, and that was the NATO. The NATO was created in 1949, and it was a military alliance aimed to defend Western countries against their eventual enemies, the Soviets. The initial 12 NATO members were Belgium, Canada, Denmark, France, Iceland, Italy, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Norway, Portugal, United Kingdom, and United States. Other military alliances were promoted by the United States around the world, bilateral alliances or multilateral military alliances. All of them aimed to isolate the USSR and to prevent their reaching to the seas. The most important ones were the Inter-American Treaty of Reciprocal Assistance, United States and 23 Latin American countries, the Pacific Security Treaty, or ANZUS, United States, Australia and New Zealand, the Southeast Asia Treaty Organization, Australia, France, United Kingdom, New Zealand, Pakistan, Philippines, Thailand and the United States, or the Baghdad Pact, United Kingdom, United States, Turkey, Iraq, Iran and Pakistan. The Eastern Bloc. If the United States is the leader of the Western Bloc, the USSR is the leader of the Eastern Bloc. Eastern European countries were satellite states controlled economically and militarily by the USSR. These satellite states were ruled by each one's communist party, forming up actually dictatorships. Of course, opposition to these regimes were severely repressed. But to control successfully these satellite states, the Soviet Union had to provide the same help the United States was providing to the Western countries. That means economic, political and military assistance. In that way, in the Eastern Bloc, and as a response to the Western Marshall Plan, the Soviet Union created the Council for Mutual Economic Aid. It was an organization to set up a system of mutual help and an interchange of products, usually oil for manufactured goods. As a response to the NATO, the Soviet Union created the Warsaw Pact. It was a military alliance between the USSR and Eastern European countries to defend themselves from the Western Bloc.